The Santa Lucia Mountains had a way of swallowing sound, not dampening it, not muting it, swallowing it whole. Like the ridges themselves drank every whisper until all that remained was the hum in your own ears. Ryan noticed it the moment he stepped out of his car at the trailhead west of Big Sur. No birds, no wind in the needles of the pines, just the crunch of gravel under his boots and the faint, endless hush of the Pacific far behind him. He'd been telling himself this was supposed to be a healing trip. His first real solo backpacking trek since Marcus had disappeared in these same mountains a year ago. People had said Marcus wandered off trail, maybe slipped into a ravine, maybe met one of the mountain lions that prowled the ridges. Ryan never believed that. Marcus wasn't careless, and he wasn't the type to just vanish. But no one found a body. No gear, nothing. And yet Ryan came here. Maybe it was to find answers. Maybe it was guilt. Maybe it was because he'd started waking in the night to the sound of footsteps outside his apartment, quiet, patient, deliberate only for the street to be empty. The air was sharp with pine and salt. The first miles were calm enough. Old deer trails threaded through redwoods and manzanita thickets, the trunks painted orange in the slanting afternoon light. The ocean flashed between ridges, glinting like a blade. But the higher he climbed, the longer the shadows stretched. They didn't fall naturally. They reached, clung to his heels, bending at odd angles even when the sun was behind him. That's when he saw the first one. It stood on a ridge, far above, tall and still, a silhouette cut too clean from the haze. At first, Ryan thought it was a twisted tree trunk. But the shape had shoulders, a head, the faint suggestion of a wide-brimmed hat. It was turned toward him. When he blinked, it was gone. By sunset, the wind had picked up, rattling the brush, but it didn't carry the smell of weather. It carried the smell of dry stone and something older, metallic, like rain, that had never fallen. He pitched his tent in a clearing ringed with oaks, telling himself the unease was just nerves. But the night never settled. The tent fabric flexed in gusts, though the air was still. Dry leaves shifted as if stepped on, then stopped. Every time Ryan closed his eyes, he swore there was someone standing just outside. Not walking, not circling, just watching. At dawn, he unzipped the tent and froze. Across the canyon, on a peak blazing gold with the first light, stood another figure. This one was closer, the brim of its hat casting a void where its face should have been. A cloak or something like it stirred in a wind he couldn't feel. He lifted his hand without knowing why. The figure didn't respond. When Ryan looked away and back, the peak was empty. He packed quickly and kept moving. The day was a gauntlet. Every bend in the trail revealed a new watcher, one on a cliff edge, one beside a leaning pine, one perfectly framed in the notch of a saddle ridge. They never moved. They were always just far enough to make him question his eyes. But they were always there. By the second night, he stopped bothering with the tent. He kept a small fire going and leaned against a boulder, the rock cold against his back. The woods hissed with whispers, too faint to catch but too constant to be wind. Somewhere after midnight, one stepped into the firelight. It was less than 10 feet away, tall, cloaked, the brim of its hat casting its face in complete shadow. Ryan's chest locked. It had no face, not hidden absent, just a void that absorbed the firelight. And yet he knew, with the kind of certainty that freezes bone, that it was staring at him. "Who are you?" The words left his mouth dry and cracking. The figure tilted its head slightly. Then a voice filled his skull not through his ears, but from inside, sliding across his thoughts like cold sand pouring down glass. "We were here before light, before sound. We only watch. But you climbed higher." Another figure stepped from the dark to his left, then another to his right. In seconds, a dozen of them stood in a loose ring among the trees, their shapes bleeding into the shadows but never fully disappearing. "You should not see us," they whispered as one. "You should not remember." Ryan's hand shot out, grabbed a burning branch from the fire, and hurled it at the nearest one. The ember passed through the figure like smoke. The fire didn't even touch its cloak. Then the branch went cold in midair. The fire behind him guttered out. Darkness swallowed him whole. When he woke, the sun was high, but the world was wrong. The trail was gone. The landmarks had shifted. Ridges sloped the wrong way. Trees that had been behind him now stood ahead. His compass needle spun like it was caught in a current. His phone screen showed nothing but static before going black. Hours bled together as he stumbled through canyons and over ridges. The more he moved, the more the land rearranged itself when he looked away. The watchers no longer kept their distance. Sometimes he caught one at the edge of his vision, only for it to be behind him when he turned. By the third night, he didn't bother with light. He sat in the dark and listened. When they came this time, they came closer. One leaned in until the brim of its hat touched his forehead. He smelled nothing, no earth, no sweat, no fabric. "You are one of us now," it said inside his mind. Something in Ryan cracked. He laughed, but it came out jagged, like glass grinding together. The next morning, a search team found his camp. The food was untouched. His pack was still zipped. Footprints led into the scrub, then stopped dead halfway up a ridge. They searched for a week. Planes swept the mountains. Dogs combed the slopes. No Ryan. But hikers still talk about the Santa Lucias. They say the ridges sometimes grow new shadows that weren't there the day before. Shadows with the shape of a man who shifts just slightly when you're not looking. A man who wasn't there before. A man who still remembers what it was like to be human. Like and subscribe.